What's up, gang? Just Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. No food, no fuel, no pets. Ain't got no cigarettes. We're gonna watch a pretty fun show from today. We're gonna start out with Trudeau, which is unfortunate, but immediately we'll get into him being ransacked.
Nous devons, une fois pour toutes, rejeter cette violence qui n'apporte que mort et destruction et bâtir un avenir meilleur et plus sécuritaire pour les Israéliens comme pour les Palestiniens. Un jeune homme qui venait de chez moi, à Montréal. What an incredible person she was when I had the honor of meeting them a few months ago. Let us remember 1,200 innocent souls taken from us far too soon. May their memory.
Our ears are filled with the echo of horror. Our eyes are darkened with the shade of genocidal cruelty. 365 days ago today, we saw exacted upon the Jewish people the worst and most deadly attack since the Holocaust. An attack carried out by a genocidal death cult, Hamas. They deliberately targeted civilians, children. They burned people alive, tortured children in front of their parents. They mutilated dead bodies. And then they displayed their cruel, sadistic, diabolical horrors in posts that they would put on the internet, not even trying to conceal their evil. And why did they do it? Not because there was an occupying force they were trying to expel. Israel had voluntarily expelled itself from Gaza 15 years ago through the incredibly painful and even controversial decision to arrest its own citizens and drag them out of the Gaza Strip into Israel proper, leaving Hamas the ability to govern that land without any interference whatsoever from Israel, but with, of course, total occupation by the terrorist regime in Tehran. And why now? Why at this moment, suddenly, after 15 years? Was it because war was breaking out? Exactly the opposite. It was because peace was breaking out. Israel had just successfully signed the Abraham Accords with multiple Muslim Arab states, with momentum towards a potential deal with Saudi Arabia. Imagine that, the Jewish state signing a peace deal with the home of Mecca and Medina. What a bright new era that would be for everyone except for the tyrants of Tehran, for which such peace would be their worst nightmare. And so, to interrupt the potential of that harmony, they instigated, planned, financed, and coordinated this direct assault, and since that time have unleashed a 7-front war on the Israeli people, a war that has been relentless and cruel. But before we talk further about that, let us take a moment to honor the victims. Let their memories be a blessing. To think of the courageous hostages and their families in anguish. Bring them home. And yet, Jews here at this home are re-victimized again and again. After watching the Jewish homeland torn apart by this genocidal attack, now they see the same motives and vicious hatred carried out on our very streets, with a staggering increase in hate crimes, most of them directed at the Jewish people. Why now? Why now? Now, we might say, well, of course, because tensions are inflamed by the war between Hamas and Israel. But wait, this is not the first war that Israel has had to fight. There have been countless wars where Israel has had to defend its very existence. And those wars did not spill onto Canadian streets. In 2000, it's true. It's true. In 2008 and 2007, 2006, when Israel was forced to fight back against Hezbollah in Lebanon, there was no violence on our streets. We did not have hate crimes overtaking Jewish communities, protests at Jewish hospitals, Jewish homes, Jewish businesses. When there was conflict again in 2014, that did not spill into our streets. So why now? Why all of a sudden has this hatred found such a home here in Canada? Now, some say it's because our people are flawed. The government needs to fix the people, censor the people, better control and corral the people. Well, is it really the people who are the problem? It wasn't the people who appointed Laith Maruth, an anti-racism expert, after he had said, and I quote, "Life is too short for shoes with laces or for entertaining Jewish white supremacists with anything but a bullet in the head. Given a Government of Canada grant, this individual, supposedly, to fight racism." Or Birju Ditani, appointed as the Commissioner of the Canadian Human Rights Commission, after he wrote, "Terror is not an irrational strategy pursued solely by fundamentalists with politically and psychologically warped visions of a new political, religious, or ideological order. It is, in fact, a rational and well-calculated strategy that is pursued with surprisingly high success rates." The head of our Human Rights Commission. Or an Ontario school that forced children to attend an anti-Israel protest. Kids divided and told to wear different colors to identify.
All right, gang, we're going to skip into something else. There was a pretty exciting thing going on the House Commons floor this afternoon. We're going to try to take a peek at that. Let's see if we can get this loaded in there.
Thought that no other committee member wished to continue debate. With that said, from viewing the video of the meeting, it would certainly appear that very little time was afforded to committee members by the chair to indicate their desire to continue debate on the motion before the question was put. These points provide important context in considering this matter. There is no evidence of an intent to manipulate the process of debate by the chair proceeding to a decision on the motion in question in this instance, but rather this appears to be a misunderstanding between the member and the chair. The member for New Brunswick Southwest seems to have operated in good faith in presiding over the committee proceedings on September 23, 2024. Néanmoins,
that being said, such a miscommunication between the committee chair and
circumstances, I cannot conclude that the committee chair violated Standing Order 116.2. The proceedings of the committee on September 23, 2024 can stand. The chair's decision is in part influenced by the fact that this is still a relatively untested standing order and that guidance has not really been provided to committee chairs. Going forward, it is likely that the chair will take a more rigid approach. Accordingly, to avoid a repetition of this situation, I wish to provide guidance for the benefit of all committee chairs and members. Lorsqu'un président du comité,
when a chair begins to discern that debate is nearing completion, before putting the question or asking
have their name added to the speaking list in committee, they should also ensure they receive an acknowledgement from the chair or the clerk that their name has been added to the list. As members know, it is often a committee clerk that maintains a speaking list for use by the chair. And I'll say this again because it bears repeating. It is often the committee clerk that maintains a speaking list for use by the chair. Indeed, it is a best practice that the committee clerk maintains such a list. I thank all members for their attention. Point of order, the honourable member from Nepean.
Speaker, this based on what you made, the ruling you just made. I was listening very carefully. You did mention that you watched the video, and you also mentioned, to paraphrase, that you saw the opportunity was not there for the.
Great time and care to come up with this decision. I encourage the honourable member to take a closer look at it and to take a look at the ruling from the chair. The honourable member from Mississauga, Erin Mills, is rising on, I'm assuming, a similar point of order.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I really appreciate your ruling and for the whole table to take into account what has happened. I'm sure that as you viewed the videos, you would have seen that my hand was raised not at the point that the question was called, but way prior to when the question was called. And what I have experienced, not just in the Public Accounts Committee, but also in the Ethics Committee and many others, is the consistent, constant bullying of the Conservatives, of my privilege within these committees to be able to operate, to be able to ask my questions, to be able to put my viewpoint, to be able to give respect to the witnesses that come before our committees on a regular basis. And so I do have to say I'm quite disheartened by your ruling, Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker, because ultimately what that does is that it puts people like myself on the back bench, on the back burner, while there's Conservative games afoot on a regular basis, and they use these regular, rules within the standing orders to play their games, and we are the ones, and Canadians are the ones that suffer on this, Mr. Chair.
Colleagues, I listen patiently to two members on this matter. If there's a genuine issue to raise, then the members are, of course, if there's a, sorry, that was a poor choice of words, and I withdraw it. If there is a point of view on a point of order that is new, members are free to stand up. But if not, I'm going to ask that we put this to bed and move on, and encourage all members to take a look at this matter. I thank all honourable members.
The day.
Orders of the day, ordre du jour, reprise du débat sur une motion.
Resuming debate on a privileged motion regarding failure to produce documents pertaining to Sustainable Development Technology Canada, standing in the name of Mr. Scheer. Resuming debate on.
I've got some committee videos lined up. We're going to watch that. I haven't watched this. I'm not sure where it's going. These committee videos, though, are great. Like, I know that. This is a tough choice.
September 19th, 2024, the committee is resuming its study of Russian interference and disinformation campaigns in Canada. Did you have a... Ms.
Thanks.
Moss?
I had a question for the clerk just before we start, if that's okay, Chair. I understand some of the witnesses have not been responding to your outreach. There were 3 witnesses that were named in our study that we all unanimously agreed to: Liam Donovan, Lauren Chen, and Lauren Southern. And I'm just wondering, first of all, have you heard back from them at all?
They've been contacted twice, and no answers were provided.
So I'm wondering if the committee was agreeable that the clerk send a letter from committee members inviting them again, but having it come from the members of the committee this time, and also I mean, we do have powers beyond just an invitation if we want folks to appear, just listing what our options are if they choose not to respond.
I'll take that as a motion. Do we have consent, unanimous consent? Yes? Very well, thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Okay, so we'd now like to welcome our witnesses for the first hour. As an individual, we have Anton Tchaikovskov, and I apologize for the pronunciation, a visiting professor from Central European University by video conference. We have from RESET, we have Ben Scott, Chief Executive Officer. And so I now invite Mr. Tchaikovskov to make an opening statement of up to 5 minutes. Please go ahead, sir.
Dear Mr. Chair, dear committee member, thank you for your kind invitation. Dear ladies and gentlemen, members of Parliament, it is my long-term observation that Russia is waging a...
Excuse me, sir, you're breaking up on it.
When Western nations decided to provide political, military, and economic support to Ukraine in its defensive war against the full-scale Russian aggression. As a country in the world's top 10 donors to Ukraine, Canada is one of the targets of Russian political warfare. In the context of the Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine, one prominent element of Russian political warfare against the West, including Canada, is information war, in which Russia advances two types of narratives, strategic and tactical. Strategic narratives reflect genuine, deep-seated beliefs of the Russian leadership linked to Ukraine or the broader context of the aggression. Strategic narratives demonstrate some internal logic and are generally coherent, although that does not imply that they are right or correct. Three major strategic narratives related to the Russian invasion and directed at the West, including Canada, are as follows. First, Russia is a global power that has a right to have its own sphere of influence, and Ukraine belongs there. Second, Ukraine as part of the West poses an existential threat to Russia. And third, NATO is using Ukraine to wage a war against Russia. Tactical narratives serve as an indictment on terrorists or on the black celebrities produced. Is the
research and policy development and public attention focused on fighting digital threats to democracy, including the kinds of Russian information operations targeting democratic states that we're here to talk about today. I have done quite a bit of work with my team looking at the case of Tenant Media, which has sparked this hearing. So I want to talk a little bit about what Tenant Media looks like. I think all the members of the committee are likely familiar with the details of this case, but just to recap, this was revealed in a sweeping indictment by the Department of Justice back in September, just over a month ago, and indicated that a company based in Tennessee, but which importantly is a subsidiary of a Montreal-based company run by two Canadians, Lauren Chen and her husband, Liam Donovan, were paid by the Russians $10 million to subsidize the production of video and social media content that was distributed over all of the major social media platforms by the two of them, as well as a set of 6 other influencers, including Lauren Southern, another prominent Canadian social media influencer. I think it's notable that a lot of the media attention has described this activity as focused on the U.S. market, but I think it's really important to note how much of the content had a Canadian focus and how much Russian information operations that we have observed over the years have not distinguished much between an American audience and a Canadian audience. The Russian tactics, as a professor's comments clearly illustrate, is intended to divide and to destabilize with disinforming and conspiratorial narratives. And that's certainly true for Canada as much as it is for the U.S. I want to highlight here for you in my opening remarks some of the evidence that we've uncovered in our forensic work to look at what Tenant Media did with its $10 million in Russian funding. First, all of these accounts that Tenant was subsidizing across all social media platforms had a total subscriber base of about 16 million, which is quite large. What does that mean in terms of total audience?
I always find it more interesting when they're asking questions. So these witnesses are so full of shit all the time. Dane Lloyd, though. Dane Lloyd's pretty entertaining. He's going to get going here.
Trying all they can to ruin this solidarity, to create divisions, to create polarization, to create, to undermine that solidarity and support for Ukraine, and hence the information attacks.
Thank you. And so I don't think I'm putting words in your mouth by reiterating what you said, that there is a strong consensus in support of Ukraine in countries like Canada, correct?
This is my understanding, looking at the some data on support that Canada gives to Ukraine, and I mentioned in my speech, I'm really sorry if the audio quality was not enough, but Canada, as far as I know, is in top 10 of the world's donors to Ukraine. So, of course, this is extremely important.
And I'm certainly very proud of Canada's long-standing support of Ukraine, especially starting in 2014 with Operation Unifier, training the Ukrainian forces, of which a number of my friends in the Canadian Armed Forces went over there to do that. You know, in a country like Canada, though, you know, sometimes our political debates and partisanship leads to political parties accusing other political parties of not being supportive of Ukraine, including some cases from the Liberal Party, where they've accused the Conservative Party of being in the back pocket of Vladimir Putin. Is it helpful for our strong consensus on Ukraine to have the governing political party accuse the opposition party of being, like, how does that help build consensus, or is that bringing down the consensus by creating these divisive debates?
Mr. Chair, I think this is not in my position, or it's not for me to give comments on the political parties competing with each other in Canada. I am grateful to all the parties in Canada that are providing support for Ukraine, and I would like really not to comment on the political debates.
I understand. I'll kind of put this more generally for you. You talked about how one part of the success of the Russian operation is for the consumption of the disinformation and misinformation that they're spreading. And then the second part is, once that has been consumed, when it becomes part of the debate. And so if there is a debate now about which political parties do or do not support Ukraine, when there has been, as you have said, a strong consensus in support of Ukraine, is that kind of considered success by Russia when there's a perception being created that there is no consensus of political support for Ukraine in a country like Canada?
Mr. Chair, I think in this case it is important to highlight that only a full acceptance of a particular malign information narrative produced in Russia can be considered a success, a full success of this malign operation. When there are divisions, when there are some, disinformation narratives spread in the mainstream media, this is only part of success. This is not the only one. I'm sure that, for example, all of you heard that one of the most popular narratives of the Russian propaganda, that Ukrainians are Nazis and Ukraine has a Nazi problem. Just the mere fact that you know about this narrative, it is also part of success, just knowing about this. But it does not mean that the full operation, the entire information operation in Russia has been successful.
That, Canada has a role, like we've sent observers to help out in elections in countries like Ukraine. We see that there are Russian interference in other countries' elections, including the country of Georgia that's upcoming. How concerned are you about Russian influence campaigns in those countries as well, and how do you think Canada can play a role in strengthening those countries' democratic institutions?
Mr. Chair, I am concerned about the developments in Georgia. In September, I published a report on how Russian political warfare also concerns Georgia, and what actors in Georgia are essentially amplifying Russian propaganda and disinformation. And the elections that will be held in Georgia later this month, I think that they will be crucial for democracy, not only in Georgia, but also, in a way, in this part of the still what is called post-Soviet space.
Thank you, sir.
As far as I know, Canada is also part of the OSCE and participates in the OSCE ODIHR missions, and I hope that Canada will continue participating in those monitoring missions, including Georgia. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We go now to Ms. DeMoff for 6 minutes, please. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And just before I start, I noticed yesterday Ms. Dancho said she was going to disrupt today's meeting with bringing forward a motion. It's unfortunate when we have such experts with us for this testimony, studying something that former Public Safety Minister and High Commissioner for the UK called a crisis situation, that the Conservatives would want to stall and disrupt this meeting. So let's hope that she changes her mind and we can actually hear from the witnesses. I'm going to start with Mr. Scott. Beyond Ukraine messaging from Russia, what other kinds of messages was Russia sending through tenant media?
Primary messages that you see in tenant media creative are, I would call, a standard culture war playbook. They are aimed at some of the most divisive issues in Western society at the moment, questions around immigration, questions around LGBTQ rights, questions around the validity of climate change, and of course, as a professor has very clearly explained, an aggressive messaging campaign to try to undermine support for Ukraine. These are consistently reiterated across all of the tenant media channels.
I mean, I know, I think Ukraine is one that we've heard a lot about, but, you know, I'm hearing as an MP in my office where Canadians are expressing concerns about climate change, for example, and we're hearing a lot about that from the party opposite me, immigration, LGBTQ issues, all of those filtered beyond tenant media and their 16 million subscribers to Canadians. And I'm wondering if you could tell us, Mr. Scott, about the vulnerabilities that everyday Canadians have to this kind of messaging.
So I think it's quite significant, especially when you consider the way in which social media platforms function and how they make money and what kind of content they reward and monetize. So when you have channels like tenant media, which are hyperbolic and which are intentionally provocative, what happens, of course, is, hey, human nature, it draws eyeballs and people pay attention to that. And then the algorithm that is curating content on TikTok or on YouTube simply serves up more content of a similar type. The more we see things, the more normal they seem and the more normalized they become in our political rhetoric, and the less extreme they seem to us from a political standpoint that used to have this center line, it begins to move. Because how extreme can something be if it seems like everybody on social media is talking about it? So this is the pattern that we see in digital media marketplaces, which gradually leads towards a polarization of rhetoric. This is extremely divisive, not only because it distorts the representation of public opinion, but also because this is so heavily rewarded. It's not that tenant media relied exclusively on Russian secret dark money to run their operation. They also made a lot of money on advertising from the likes of YouTube and TikTok, who also make a lot of money from this kind of overt, hyper-politicized content without any effort to determine, hey, where is this coming from? Could this be an influence operation? What are our responsibilities in terms of public safety and national security?
All right, gang. So that is a very interesting committee video, but we have something we've been kind of like, I watch a few things at the same time, and this one got to the good spot. Like, here we go. This is Mike Barrett gonna unleash. He's fed up. John Broussard's a pretty good chair.
Ottawa, and through Deputy Commissioner Larkin, we got a pretty comprehensive briefing on the tools that are used for data extraction to monitor cyber crimes, etc., and foreign interference. Were any of you at that session that we were at? No? Okay. Just Mr. Fisher was. I see his hand in the back. We are going to start with our first round of questioning. 6 minutes on all sides. Every party has 6 minutes. And we are going to start with Mr. Barrett. Go ahead, Mr. Barrett, please.
Is the RCMP adequately funded to address the cyber threats that Canada faces?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. I mean, I would. Earlier last week, Deputy Commissioner Flynn, I think, said quite clearly that you wouldn't be able to talk to a chief of police anywhere in Canada and not hear that there would be an interest in discussion around resourcing. But I can tell you that the RCMP does have our cyber teams across the country. We have worked to staff these teams, to build training, to adapt to the threats, and we do surge resources to that. So, and I do believe that we are, at this time, able to work at a level of criminality that is representative of the threat. Yes.
Okay, so other police forces need more resources. The RCMP does not. Is what I'm extrapolating from your answer? It's just a quick yes or no would be great. Are you properly resourced?
We are
to address the threats that are facing Canada.
It's worth having discussion about resources, absolutely. But yes, I'll say we are resourced right now to deal with the threat.
Okay. Could the government be doing more to deter foreign interference and protect Canadians from intimidation from hostile foreign states?
It's hard for the RCMP to comment on the government, Mr. Chair. What we can say is that we welcome the new legislation in Bill 70, which has just recently been enacted on August 19th. So we look forward to be able to work with our partner at PPSC to test this new legislation. And like your earlier question was on cybercrime, on the national security and foreign actor interference, we received funding recently through the RCMP, but nonetheless, with the rise of violent extremism in Canada, it's certainly competing with our ability. So we have.
What's the operability like between the RCMP and the and CSEC to deal with these types of issues? CSEC is self-described as being responsible for foreign signals intelligence, cyber operations, and cyber security. So, is there a table that exists? I just need a very quick answer where you address threats from hostile foreign states, cyber threats targeting Canadians.
Short answer is yes, there is.
Okay, and the name of that is?
Would be NCREW, which is the National Cyber Response Unit. Okay. And there's a number of other committees and meetings that do discuss threats as they occur.
And if a Canadian were targeted by a hostile foreign state with a hostile attack, a malware or hacking attempt, foreign state sponsored, how would that, and it was intercepted by you or your partners at that table, the CSEC, how would that Canadian come to learn that had happened? So would you notify the individual that a foreign state had targeted them?
I mean, it really depends on the nature of what was found and who found it. But that committee would be the place where that discussion would take place and deconfliction would take place. And then a decision would be made going forward as to the nature of that threat and how to deal with it.
Of course, we had an example this year where parliamentarians across party lines were targeted, where it was revealed earlier this year, I should say, by a foreign state-sponsored attack, APT 31, And of course, the individuals who were targeted were all legislators, and none of them were notified by anyone who sits at that table. So it's just interesting to know that that conversation took place. I understand that that the paper got shuffled over to the House of Commons, but of course that gives cold comfort to the affected individuals and would leave other Canadians wondering what would happen to them if they were being targeted, and would they be informed, or do they have to depend on their employer to be notified and then informed, or should they wait for the FBI to let them know, which is what took place in this case, is how Canadians came to know that had occurred. There are a couple of issues that your federal policing is addressing right now, investigations into a few issues dealing with the government. Are you able to provide us with an update into the investigation dealing with the $60 million Arrive Can scam?
We're not gonna be able to comment on any investigation, and even this is outside of the national security portfolio. So definitely not the right person to answer these questions.
Did he say he's not able to answer the question? I can't hear what he's saying.
That's what I heard. Okay. Yeah, and Mr. Beaugen, if you just raise your voice a little bit more, it would be helpful. I'm having a tough time hearing, but he did say that, Mr. Barrett. So
okay.
Yep.
The only thing I said is that we're not going to be able to comment on any investigation, whether any of them, and including this one, is outside of my responsibility. So I'm certainly not the right person to get these questions directed to.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Mr. Housefather, you have 6 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you guys for coming. Does the FBI, the FBI, sorry, I feel like I'm in the States. Is the RCMP investigating right now as to whether there are foreign countries that are involved in the university encampments that happened last year and the protests that are happening to glorify terrorism and glorify Iran and Samadoun, you know, what Samadoun is doing? Are you investigating this?
Again, we're not going to be able to comment on any specific investigation today, so.
I'm not asking you to comment. I'm asking if you're looking into it.
Well, you're asking me to comment on investigations, and I've just explained that we're not going to be able to provide any details on investigations today.
I don't think the yes or no answer as to whether, are you concerned?
Yes, we're monitoring definitely what is happening in Canada. Mm-hmm. And we have a number of folks looking at the current situation.
And when we have demonstrations like the one we had yesterday in Montreal, where McGill University buildings were damaged, where we had previous knowledge that these demonstrations were going to occur, what is the RCMP's role with respect to coordinating with local police?
So we engage with police of jurisdictions early when we know some things will occur, and we're in touch with them. And when something does occur, then we're going to liaise to see if there's a national security nexus to the incident.
But prior to something actually occurring, are you investigating to see if there's national security nexuses to the planned demonstration and advising local law enforcement accordingly?
Yes.
Okay. With respect to the question of, I understand why in the question that Mr. Barrett had asked, you know, there would be times where you would discuss whether or not an individual should be made privy to information in terms of a foreign threat if you thought perhaps that individual was colluding with or, you know, an agent of the foreign source. But in the event that you realized that the person was blameless and was being, made susceptible to threats from a foreign source, what would be the reason the RCMP would not advise that individual?
There's a variety of reasons, including when we are dealing with foreign states conducting this investigation. So there could be caveats as to what we can do with the information. It could be a request from another agencies to not act on them. There's a wide range of reasons why we wouldn't at some point.
But you understand that, of course, to a parliamentarian, that's a very scary prospect, right? That there's a threat against, for example, me or anyone else, and you're aware of it, but I am not. Now, there seems to be, I don't know if it in terms of what the policing jargon would be, but it seems to be a disconnection between what the person who is being threatened by that foreign source would want to know and what you would be able to or would want to tell them. How do you protect somebody if in the event that they're not aware of this impending threat from a foreign source or an ongoing threat from a foreign source, and you can't tell them because, for example, your source in another country had asked you not to do so?
Yeah, so like I said, we take security of all Canadians, including parliamentarians, at heart. And like I said, I briefed all parties earlier in June myself to ensure that all parliamentarians are aware of the threats that may be upon you. So the RCMP takes this extremely seriously. On specific cases, like I said, we're not going to comment on investigations, but in general, like I said, there's a number of issues that come to play that we have to deal with. And sometimes we get to a resolution where we can advise a person. Sometimes there's reasons operationally why we don't, and sometimes we don't know either.
Do I have any time left, Mr. Chair?
No, you have a minute and a half.
So I want to then come to communications, because from what I gather, in the United States, law enforcement, the FBI, is far more willing to disclose information more rapidly and more clearly than the RCMP is. I see that with the Trump assassination, for example, where there's information that I think in Canada wouldn't have come out for a significant amount of time after the attempted assassination in Pennsylvania, but in the United States it was very forthcoming. The law enforcement agencies were out there giving information. I think there is a perception in Canada the RCMP should communicate in a much clearer and more forthcoming way, particularly as it relates to threats. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, privacy legislation are extremely different in our two countries, so I think that's something that we need to take into account as to what we do share. But we're out there, we're in the public, we're doing a lot of campaigns to assist Canadians at all levels to understand the threats upon them with different diaspora, so to ensure that people are aware of the current situation and the threats that is happening from foreign states.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Housefather. Just en avant de Monsieur Trudel.
Just before we move on to Mr. Trudel, I just want to let the witnesses know that all members have 6 minutes to ask questions. And please don't take it personally if members have to interrupt you. It is simply because time is going very quickly. Time goes fast when asking questions. Mr. Trudel, you have 6 minutes. Thank you very much to the witnesses. I would like to come back to what Mr. Housefather was asking. He was talking about the attempted assassination of Trump and how we heard quite quickly information, and you're saying that legislation is different here than in the States, and how would it have an impact on this file? What could be changed in Canadian legislation so that we would have access to this information? Answer. Firstly, I can't comment on the time that the FBI took to advise on the situation. But in Canada, legislation on information and privacy, these legislations are more strict. There are certain things that we cannot share publicly because of the Privacy Act. Question. In the United States, the FBI doesn't feel like they need to hide information, but here we do? What's the difference? Answer. No, I don't feel like we feel the need to hide information. I don't want to comment on what the FBI wants to do or doesn't want to do. For the RCMP, we don't want to hide information. We've had campaigns, many campaigns, to increase awareness regarding threats. I was looking for the word in French, and threats have changed over recent years, and we want to be as transparent as possible. When investigations are ongoing, we cannot share information. Question, you're talking about threats, and threats, are you saying, are more serious than 5 or 10 years ago? And so...
Okay, guys, Beaker is pretty entertaining here. Does he not look like Beaker? Like, besides his hair isn't red anymore, Beaker has aged as well, guys. Like, it all catches up with us. Lord. Sorry, gang.
I have to put that on because I'm hard of hearing.
To get rid of the block.
Acting Assistant Commissioner of Federal Policing, National Security, and the RCMP noted that the RCMP's National Security Program investigates criminal activities, and that if the activities pertain to foreign interference, an investigation takes place. However, she emphasized that the RCMP does not investigate social media for misinformation, disinformation, or attempts to influence the platform. It investigates only if there is criminal activity. Why is the RCMP not investigating misinformation, disinformation, or attempts to influence on social media platforms?
Like I said earlier, some instances of misinformation and disinformation may not be illegal in itself. So the RCMP needs to look at whether a criminal offense has taken place. And when we establish this, then of course we will investigate, and it falls under the national security mandate. And when it involves cybercrime, then my colleague, Mr. William, would investigate.
So for the purpose of this committee, given the study that's before us, in what context, if any, could the spread of disinformation online be subject of an RCMP criminal investigation?
Like I mentioned earlier, it would be in relations to, with the goal to influence government processes, then that would become illegal.
When was the last time an investigation like that occurred? You don't have to give specifics, but just to give a sense for how often this might be the case.
One of the new section that just got enacted a few weeks ago.
So since this new section has been enacted, there's already been an investigation under the new parameters. Is that correct?
No, the only thing I'm saying is it's a very new law. So right now I'm not aware of it being used. But again, there's many investigations across the country.
So prior to that, there was nothing. Is that what I'm hearing?
On disinformation, it doesn't mean that like disinformation could come with threats, for example, then we could use the criminal code. We need to look at all the facts and not just the term disinformation. There's a wide range of criminal code offense we could use.
I need clarity because I'm a little bit not understanding the response. I understood you to say that the criminal threshold is if there was evidence of an influence campaign or a foreign interference that would change the government's policy. Is that not correct?
Yeah, it's interference in government processes.
Okay, so with that being said, have you in your career ever had an investigation that met that threshold?
Like I said, not personally, because this is a new law. It's been enacted about 6 weeks ago.
And again, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be stubborn here. Just to be clear, prior to that, there was no such investigation.
Government processes, no. But what I was trying to explain is that there's other section in the criminal code that disinformation itself may not constitute the offense, but foreign state actor could have committed other offenses in the criminal code that we could utilize.
Okay, again, in our study on social media platforms, Brian Larkin, the Deputy Commissioner of the RCMP's Specialized Policing Services, said that the RCMP has ongoing relationships with all social media platforms through its National Cybercrime Coordination Center, and that the RCMP also has protocols in place particularly around things like child exploitation and harm to young people. Does the RCMP, given the new law, now have specific protocol in place for dealing with foreign states spreading misinformation online in Canada?
I'm not sure I understand the question, sir. You're asking if we have contacts within the social media platforms in regards to disinformation?
Mr. Larkin said you did.
Yeah,
I'm asking you.
Yeah, we do.
Do you have specific protocols in place for dealing with foreign states spreading misinformation online in Canada, whether it's through the National Cybercrime Coordination Center or any other policy or protocol you might have within the RCMP?
So we maintain, especially on the major platforms, we maintain contacts with their security branch on a wide range of investigations, because social media is used by all criminals, not just disinformation. So we maintain contacts with them for to obtain information
Sir,
when needed.
I'm sorry. I'm going to ask the question, and it's for the purpose of the study. Can you please provide this committee with the specific protocols that you have in place when dealing with foreign states spreading misinformation online in Canada? Can you do that for us?
I'm trying to answer the question, sir. What I was trying to explain is that we don't have specific, we don't police the internet. We don't have specific, we need a victim. So when people come forward with allegations of disinformation and criminal offenses that would have occurred on the platform, then we have protocols to engage with the social media companies to ensure we capture this information.
Can you give us some examples of how the RCMP engages with the public or the private entities that you've just listed or vulnerable communities to educate them about the risks of foreign interference activities?
Yeah, so if we get an example, you're asking example. So if we get a complaint on people that would have received threats or online from a foreign state or actors of a foreign state, then we would engage the social media platforms, sometimes on an urgent basis if there's threat to life, to obtain information on the perpetrator and to ensure that we ensure public safety and stop the threats to that person.
Okay. You'll have another chance, Mr. Green. We're going to come back to you in a few minutes. That concludes our first round. Mr. Cooper is going to start us off with our second round for 5 minutes. Go ahead, Mr. Cooper.
Mr. Chair, on April 10th of this year, the Globe and Mail reported that in 2019, the then Liberal candidate, now Member of Parliament for Don Valley North, was tipped off by a Liberal Party member that he was being monitored by CSIS. It was confirmed at the public inquiry on foreign interference that only a select few top Liberals closely connected to the Prime Minister were present at classified CSIS briefing where this information was communicated. 3 top Liberals received the briefing, including Azim Ismail, the National Director of the Liberal Party. Mr. Ismail then briefed Jeremy Broadhurst, who did have the requisite security clearance, Broadhurst being a top advisor to the Prime Minister. Broadhurst then briefed the Prime Minister. So what we know is that 5 top Liberals, including the Prime Minister himself, were briefed. That information resulted in a leak in which a candidate, now Member of Parliament, was tipped off that he was being monitored by CSIS. Can you confirm that knowingly leaking classified information is an offense under Sections 13 and 14 of the Security of Information Act?
Yes, leaking classified information is a criminal offense.
And it would be fair to say that it is a serious offense punishable by up to 14 years behind bars?
Yes, I believe you're correct.
Yes. Following the Globe and Mail report, I sent a letter to the Commissioner of the RCMP dated April 12th of this year, bringing to his attention this apparent serious breach of national security, whereby all evidence points to 5 top Liberals who one of whom, or more than one of whom, may have betrayed their oath of secrecy and leaked classified information, undermining ongoing national security operations. And on May 3rd, 2024, I received a letter from the Commissioner acknowledging my letter. Since that time, has the RCMP opened an investigation?
Mr. Chair, I won't be able to comment on any facts of whether we have or not an investigation.
Well, okay, fair enough. I understand you might not be able to comment on it if an investigation has been opened, but the Commissioner did say in his letter that the RCMP will examine this information. So has the RCMP examined the information surrounding serious allegations contained in the Globe and Mail report about a major national security breach involving top Liberals close to the Prime Minister, perhaps even the Prime Minister himself?
Mr. Chair, again, I'm not going to comment on this question.
Well, has the RCMP contacted any of these top Liberals?
Mr. Chair, again, I'm not going to comment on
this. I think there needs to be a certain level of transparency. I know you can't comment on any ongoing investigation. I understand that. I respect that. I'll put it to you this way. Has the Prime Minister contacted the RCMP? Has he referred this national security breach to the attention of the RCMP?
Mr. Chair, same answer. I'm not going to comment on.
Well, it's interesting that you're not able to comment. It's interesting further that the Prime Minister has been silent about it. He certainly hasn't said that he has referred the matter to the attention of the RCMP. We have seen the Liberals at committee try to obstruct efforts to get to the bottom of this major national security breach. And frankly, what we've seen in terms of the Prime Minister's silence, obstruction by Liberal MPs, no doubt, directed by the Prime Minister, is part of a pattern with this Prime Minister, part of a pattern of a Prime Minister who has continually put his personal and partisan political interests and that of protecting top Liberals implicated in a serious crime, leaking classified information that may have compromised a CSIS investigation into Beijing's interference activities ahead of our national security. Canadians deserve better. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. We're going to go now to Mr. Baines for 5 minutes. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our respective Director Generals for joining us today. I wanted to talk a little bit about C-70, and I think you mentioned it's a welcomed legislative changes, some measures that were brought in there. Can you maybe talk a little bit about the cybersecurity and how it intersects with security of information and signal intelligence? If you feel sufficient improvements have been made through that legislation, and does it allow you to have more powers, more ability to do the work to target misinformation, disinformation, or any foreign threats through information specifically?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I can comment on one aspect of that from a cyber perspective. Certainly, it does give us more than we had, as my colleague Mr. Baudouin had mentioned. It's very early days, so we will see where that takes us and how much more room that gives us. But certainly there is more there than what we had before. Absolutely.
Yeah. So these changes have been brought in after decades of sort of going along the same, following the.
Okay, I can't handle Baines here. Parm Baines is a piece of fill in the blank. Whatever. He's a swollen. Look at his face when he's looking into the camera. Again, like, not to throw stones living in a glass house, but Baines is gross. I'm not going to make you guys watch him for too long because he's just too much. Well, okay, well, Green was fired up today, so maybe we'll watch some Green.
documents from the foreign interference report. Now they were looking for.
Thank you very much. I want to go back to just better understanding how the RCMP prepared for this meeting, understanding that we're talking about foreign interference. We've just had, I think, some major revelations vis-a NSICOP. I'm wondering in preparation for this meeting if either of the witnesses had the opportunity to kind of reflect on the global comparators where police services, national police services that would be akin to the RCMP might also be dealing with these same types of situations.
Mr. Chair, is the question, how did we prepare for the committee?
The question is, in preparing for the committee and preparing for this work, for this study, did you take a look at best practices in other jurisdictions?
Yeah, we always do, not just for this committee, Mr. Chair. We were part of the Five Eyes Committee.
So can you please provide what examples you would use from other jurisdictions that you would have as recommendations for this study?
I'm not familiar with the study, but what I can say is that there's several best practices that we use. I think one of them that we're trying to do right now on foreign interference is break the silos between police services. And when I say silos, is really raise awareness of transnational repression, because the officers on the street may not realize that he's dealing with such a crime, and he may just see it as a threat. So, for example, we're trying to utilize some of these committees that are already in existence to spread the disinformation, including Bill C-70, to all our colleagues across Canada. So that's one example that we're utilizing to share information.
Okay.
In your opinion, what were the learnings from the NSICOP reports?
Sorry, Mr. Green, I've stopped your time because I want to make sure that our witnesses are clear of what your demand is and what you're asking them. So, because I think it's important for this study that we do get an answer. So, if there's some other way that you want to rephrase it so that I've stopped your time to give you that opportunity.
Thank you. I would ask, because of the nature of the time, if the witnesses from the RCMP would provide to us, this committee, in writing, any notes, any notes that they took, or any preparation memos that they had on examples from other jurisdictions that were dealing with this. He had mentioned that they're always looking at best practices. I'm keen to get recommendations from these witnesses here today for the purpose of our study. I don't know that I've necessarily gotten that to this point, and I just want to provide them the opportunity to provide in writing what direct recommendations they would take based on best practices from other jurisdictions in law enforcement.
Okay, I think I'm seeing some heads nod at the end of the table here, and I think they understand what the request is, and so I'm going to ask through the clerk to follow up with the Parliamentary Affairs people in the RCMP to make sure that we get a response to that. Mr. Beaudoin, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I just want to apologize if I'm not answering the question to the level that you're seeking. It's certainly not on the will, so we'll happily provide a written response.
Yeah, and this is why I wanted to.
Once we get a clear questions that we fully understand the impact.
That's why I wanted to have this interaction so that we are both. All of us are clear on what the ask is. So, Mr. Green, I still have you for 40 seconds. Are you good? Okay.
I'm okay. I'm happy with that. Thank you for the intervention, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I don't normally do that, but I wanted to make sure that we had the information. We're going to go now to Mr. Caputo and then followed by Ms. Shanahan after that for 5 minutes. Go ahead, Mr. Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chief Superintendent Bailyn. Thank you, Chief Superintendent Beaudoin. And thank you to our Director General O'Hayan. Hopefully I'm addressing you the proper way here. Yes, good. Thank you. I want to pick up where my colleague, Mr. Barrett, left off, and he was speaking about appropriate resourcing. Now, the Auditor General released a report in June of this past year. I assume that, I'm not sure if you read that report. You're familiar with it. I see Chief Superintendent Bailyn is nodding his head. with it?
I think we're talking about the same report, but I'll wait for you to
Yeah,
continue the question.
it was a pretty major report in June. It talked about the RCMP and resourcing, and I know that it talked about resourcing generally, but my colleague, Mr. Barrett, did ask about resourcing, and I want to just take a quote here from that report and to put it to you, sir. And it says this: overall, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police Communications Security Establishment Canada and the CRT, Canadian Radio Television Telecommunications, did not have the capacity and tools to effectively enforce laws intended to protect Canadians from cyber attacks and address the growing volume and sophistication of cybercrime. Now, I believe that's a direct quote from the Auditor General. What do you say to that?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. What I would say to that is that we've learned from that report that the evolution of cybercrime has required us to focus our efforts at a higher level. I mentioned the word ecosystem earlier. So we are evolving our techniques. We are evolving tools. I did also say that I'm always interested in having a conversation about resourcing and how we can better approach and deal, with the aspects of cyber criminality. But I also said earlier as well, you remember that the Auditor General report did go back a number of years, and when we talk about our initial approach to cybercrime, cyber-enabled crime, frauds, and so on and so forth, where we've now evolved to that work that still needs to continue, but moving away from an incident response type aspect of cybercrime and working at a level of criminality that is about dismantling a system that enables cybercrime. So we're refocusing a lot of our efforts in that respect to make sure that we can adequately deal with the issue.
Of that, sir. I just given what the Auditor General has said, and given the slow machinations of government and how long it takes, and as somebody who prosecuted a great deal of cybercrime, I believe the Auditor General has put it quite clearly that resources are a problem. Resources are a problem. In this instance, we had one case the Auditor General highlighted with the CRTC, where in order to get around a warrant, I believe that a device was essentially wiped or destroyed. In any event, I will move on here. To the RCMP superintendents, can you confirm that there are no PRC police stations operating in Canada at this time?
Again, I'm not going to comment on the ongoing investigation. It's been well detailed that there is ongoing investigations on this, so I'm not going to provide any further comments.
Well, with respect, I believe Minister Mendicino, as he was Minister of Public Safety, I believe he actually publicly commented on this issue in 2023, saying that the police stations had been shut down. Now, I think that this is a matter that concerns Canadians greatly, particularly groups that are targeted. And I'm just, candidly, I'm a bit surprised that we can't even hear in Parliament say whether or not there are police stations. I mean, I understand that there are active investigations, or there might be. I'm not sure if there might be. How can't we just say yes or no? These things are or are not operating, and how does that jeopardize an investigation?
So there is active investigation. To your point, saying there might be, I think it's been confirmed that there is active investigation. And again, I'm not going to comment further on this subject.
Okay. From what I can understand, and I know I don't have a whole lot of time, but my understanding is that the RCMP said that they shut these down, that this is in 2023. So if that's different in 2024, here we are as parliamentarians studying foreign interference. I think we should know whether or not there has been a change there. Do you have any comment to that?
I don't have any comments, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Caputo. Ms. Shanahan for 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Monsieur le Président, puis...
Okay, now we're going to have this tramp, Brenda Shanahan, come out. She's probably going to speak en français. She doesn't represent a French riding or anything like that. Lord. telling you guys, these liberals, when you watch all this stuff, they're...
Yeah, je remercie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to thank the witnesses who are with us today.
She's going to speak in French.
In Châteauguay-Lacolle, my writing,
fix that.
Words are not found in the criminal.
And we talked about
criminal, but like you won't find these terms under.
Shanahan is one of the worst guys. Like, there's no.
Kartashiva, who is the director, and Guillaume Sirois, who is counsel.
A woman like
so we're going to start with you, Professor Torek. You have up to 5 minutes to address the committee with an opening statement. Go ahead, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and the committee for inviting me to discuss this.
Nope.
Fakes before they get out of hand. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. Under time, we appreciate that. Mr. Boyd, we're going to go to you next for 5 minutes. Or go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Kenneth Boyd. I'm the Director of Education at Civics, a national nonpartisan charity that is dedicated to building the skills and habits of active and informed
rights and the rule of law, opposing the invasion of Ukraine and Putin's regime.
I've had. And I'll give a shout out to St. John Bosco in Brockville and St. Edward's School in Westport, who've invited me to take part in Rep Days there. I think it's a great program. Always great questions that demonstrate the understanding that young people have, these students have, as a result of the efforts of your program, and that's certainly commendable. You talk about education being a provincial responsibility, but I wonder if you could quickly tell us about your funding. How much federal funding have you received, and how much provincial funding does your organization receive?
Yeah, we receive, I can't tell you exact percentages just off the top of my mind. We are a registered charity, so all of our funding information is, of course, on the public record. But we do, I would say, receive in terms of our funding for our digital media literacy programs, especially receive a combination of funding from the federal government, from the Digital Citizens Initiative, as well from some private organizations, donors, research centers, as well as from some of the provincial governments as well. But I would say mostly in terms of this program, we've received from Canadian Heritage and from the Digital Citizens Initiative.
And the funding for, I believe that you've expanded your offerings overseas, Colombia and Chile. How are those initiatives funded?
Those initiatives are funded through independent grants that have been applied for by our teams in Colombia and in Chile. So they received a grant recently from the EU to continue funding their projects, and they have taken the work that we've done in Canada, especially on the digital media literacy programs, and adapted those for an audience in both Colombia and in Chile.
So teaching children how to navigate through what I think you described it as digital pollution. I think there's definitely lots of pollution online. I think that critical thinking and being able to discern what's real and what's not become more and more challenging all the time. What is one tangible thing, one tangible recommendation that you would make for us to include in this report that you think would improve digital media literacy for children across Canada?
I think there needs to be sort of an investigation into the kinds of resources that are effective, that are based in evidence, and that can be made. And as I mentioned before, we do understand education is more of a provincial responsibility. But in terms of being able to sort of make the recommendation that, you know, there are some tools that have been shown to be effective, to understand what those are, and to sort of make that known to not just to students, but to Canadians more widely, that there are effective digital media literacy strategies out there that can be learned. I think that would be something concrete that the committee could pursue.
Understanding of the uniformity of material that's being delivered across Canada in this space on civic literacy and digital media literacy. Is there any standard across the province between provinces and territories? And if so, what is it? And if not, is there even consistency within each province on the material that's being delivered across school boards?
In terms of the different provinces, there are it's commodified in curricula the requirements that digital media literacy or source evaluation be taught in some capacity. Provinces are able to make recommendations or able to list possible resources, but they do not mandate the use of any particular resource. So that is to say that you might find different digital media literacy education happening between provinces and territories. There is no unified, consistent mandate to use some resources and not others.
What do you think is the most important way that your organization will protect its credibility going forward? Like, what steps are in place, whether it's for board selection or for screening funding sources, to ensure that as an organization that's charged itself with these important educational initiatives, how are you ensuring that you remain credible, unimpeachable in a very murky landscape of information providers?
Sorry, could you rephrase the question in terms of the credibility? I maybe missed the first part of that question.
10 seconds left, so.
Really, I was just looking what you're doing to protect your credibility, whether it's with selection of individuals on your board or screening funding sources based on the murky information landscape that's out there. How are you protecting your credibility as a source for teaching people?
I'm going to need a really quick response, Mr. Boyd. Really quick.
Very quickly, as I mentioned, we are a charity, so we are very transparent about all of our funding sources. So that is, I think, one way that we maintain credibility.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Shanahan, pour 6 minutes.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair.
Before we even get going with Brenda Shanahan, who I do not like, if I had a chance, I'd tell her the reasons I don't like her. I would interrupt her time at the grocery store if I ever saw her. We're quite a distance away, but if she does not speak English, there's no reason for a woman like that.
I'd like to thank the witnesses all for being here, but I want to particularly turn my attention to a story that came out in the last month, which I'm sure that the witnesses are familiar with, and that is the story about Tenet Media. There is actually a connection to my home province of Quebec in that there were two people in our West Island locality, Lauren Chen and someone else, that were named in a U.S. indictment that they're alleged to have been spreading misinformation. It could have been that they were, as I think the technical term goes, useful idiots, but it could be that they were very knowingly doing what they're doing. I don't know. But let's talk about what was going on there. So according to the U.S. indictment, after Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022, RT, or Russia Today, was sanctioned, dropped by distributors, and ultimately forced to cease formal operations in the United States, Canada, and United Kingdom, and the European Union. That's a very big market right there. In response, RT created, in the words of its editor-in-chief, an entire empire of covert projects designed to shape public opinion in Western audiences. The indictment goes on to allege that Tenet Media is one of RT's covert projects. How does the RT empire of covert projects hurt Ukrainian Canadians? And I'm asking that of Madam Kartasheva.
First of all, thank you for the question. I feel like asking that question, Ukrainian Canadians would be better, as I am representative of a Russian society in Canada. But I feel like Russian propaganda in general is hurting everyone. But specifically, if we're talking about Ukrainians in Canada, I am sure I was talking with directors, one of the directors of URCC, and he was telling me that after the war and because of the Russian propaganda, they've seen horrendous increase of hate crimes against Ukrainians, whether it will be insults or just, some symbols outside in the universities or just, on the street. And we know that there are a lot more Ukrainians now in Canada, right? Because the war started and Canada opened its doors for them. And I imagine that for them, it's got to be very traumatizing to come from the war and see these hateful symbols around them. And from my understanding, Canada doesn't do enough to protect them or even to react to these crimes. So I guess.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for that answer. And in fact, for enlarging the question, I do want to point out that in my riding of Chateauguay-Lacolle, which will soon be named Chateauguay-Les Jardins de Napierville, because we have a wonderful agricultural region, we go right out to the American border, but we have a large number of Russian speakers of mixed Russian-Ukrainian heritage. And we were very proud, even a small city of Chateauguay, 50,000 people, to be able to receive over 100 Ukrainian families who were displaced after the invasion, Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And so people were, it was all hands on deck, really a wonderful community project. And indeed, all of the group has since been disbanded insofar as the Ukrainians have completely integrated and are working and are, looking after themselves and their families, although the friendships are forever. So I just wanted to, it has sensitized our community, though, very much to this disinformation, misinformation, and how harmful it can be. How can we best fight back?
Well, it's a very important question, and I guess that's why we all gathered here. But one of the points that I was making is that there's got to be some kind of independent body that would be investigating these kinds of disinformation and provide recommendations to how to react to that, or maybe even sometimes enforcing some solutions for that. Because obviously it is a very complex issue, and the problem concerns not just, for example, a media like Russia Today. This strategy of Russian propaganda, it's very, very complex. It includes on social media, it includes different experts, in quotes, right, that go and do interviews on different media, including normal and respected media. It includes different professors. So it is a very complex issue that's got to be treated on all of these levels. And that's why I was proposing this independent body that would be coordinating this activity. Because if the issue is, if everyone is solving the issue, no one is solving the issues. There's got to be someone, like one body that's monitoring all that.
Thank you for that. And I want to thank you for the work that you're doing in sensitizing Canadians, indeed, that there are Russians here in Canada who are actively fighting for democracy, even at the risk of your own selves. And I appreciate the work that you are doing. Do you know of any other RT projects that are seeking to influence Western audiences?
Nope. We're sick of Brenda Shanahan. Well, we could watch Beaker.
How would we
here.
counter that?
Look at little Beaker.
So what we say in our report
on this problem, what legislation could we implement
just like Beaker
to ensure that during the next election campaign there wouldn't be a video of me on social media selling conservative programming, for example? How would we counter that?
So what we say in our report is that this is obviously something that has to be taken on in multiple dimensions. There's the companies themselves. We need to get ahead of the...
Mr. Boyd in Canada, Mr.
So that's a transparency for...
Monsieur Trudel, and then 2.5 minutes for you, Mr. Green. That'll take us up to the allotted time. I am going to go now to Mr. Caputo for 5 minutes. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to thank the witnesses here. Here are two that we have in person, Mr. Boyd on video and Professor Tork. And I note, Professor, you are from UBC, and as an SFU grad, I have to put in a friendly jab about the superiority of SFU.
Point of order, Mr.
In all seriousness, one of the things that has really bothered me about the about foreign interference, especially surrounding elections, is the amount of time it takes for the government to act. In other words, the people on the ground know exactly what's happening, and yet there is a significant lag time between that information getting to security forces in Canada and there being action taken. Would either you, Mr. Boyd or Professor Tork, have any input on that?
Maybe I'll just say briefly that obviously one of the things that I advocated for is thinking about transparency and how that can happen appropriately.
Mr. Boyd, any response to that?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, as you mentioned, there is potentially inevitably going to be some lag time in these kinds of cases, but I think that points to the need to approach these problems from multiple different angles. So in terms of having Canadian citizens having the ability to help identify when information is being false or misleading, I think can be something that can help fill the gap before there's action taken by any sort of federal agency.
And okay, so let's build on that. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, Mr. Sirois has something to add here. Thank you.
Yes, if I may add, Russian propaganda, especially, has been an issue for a very long time, at least for a decade or maybe more. And we've learned through the Foreign Interference Commission today that the strategy to address this foreign interference is at a nascent stage. This is a very long delay to address a national security issue like foreign interference. And we've seen the consequences of that with the Tenet media operation. Had we had a strategy sooner, for instance, after the 2016 interference during the presidential election, maybe we wouldn't be here today talking again about foreign interference.
Well, I certainly agree with you, Mr. Sirois. If I have to be candid, which I believe I should be in these committees and in Parliament generally, I have seen a lack of political will to address this head-on. And frankly, that falls at the feet of the government. And I've said this at just about every committee meeting we've had. We have 11 people who have wittingly or semi-wittingly, according to our security forces, worked with hostile foreign states. And you talk about confronting this and confronting it early. I believe the term you used was nascent, at its nascent stages. And yet, this is information we know, that our security forces know, and yet we as Canadians don't know. We've asked so many times of our security apparatuses, and yet it feels like we get no further information. Is that just not completely the opposite of the approach we should be taking, of shining the light, shining it brightly, and shining it early?
Thank you for your question. I think we both agree that transparency is the key to answering to foreign propaganda, such as the Russian interference we're discussing today. And this is transparency allows for the beginning of the conversation on how we can address this issue. If we don't know what the government is doing behind closed doors, we cannot have a proper discussion about what it should be doing or what the government is doing wrong.
Now, Ms. Kartasheva, did I pronounce that correctly? You had mentioned something that you, at the beginning, that caught my ears, that you were sentenced to 7 years in jail in Russia, I guess in absentia. Okay. Do you want to talk about that? This is your time if you want to discuss that, any impacts, and what other people in your position go through. Feel free, the floor is yours.
Well, I guess the worst part for me was that I didn't receive the support from Canada in time. I received it later after I managed to get media attention, but for months I was struggling to get any attention, or even like my MPs, which she apologized later because apparently there was some mistake on her assistant's part. But for months I felt completely abandoned by Canada, and I'm very worried that this might happen to someone else. In short, what happened is that I had my citizenship application being processed at the time when I was sentenced in Russia, which I at first was obviously arrested, then I was sentenced, and so I informed the IRCC about this, which IRCC basically ignored, and my first citizenship ceremony was cancelled. And then I received a letter half a year later saying that I might not become a citizen because of that, because I'm a criminal in Russia.
Something from IRCC, just so I'm clear, saying...
Half a year later, I was writing to them several times, asking if there is any progress, which they said that we are reviewing your case, everything is fine, and then they sent me a letter saying that you have a month to send us all the documents that you might want to provide. And they sent it to me in the beginning of December, just so you understand. So it was months, and it was holidays. No one was responding for my requests to send me any documents. So it was great time.
Okay. Yeah, the worst part of my job is having to cut somebody off who's
I'm sorry.
telling their story.
I'm sure that perhaps one of my Liberal colleagues will allow you to. I think this is worthy of hearing.
Let's see if Mr. Baines will take you up on that offer. Mr. Baines, you have 5 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I will, if you want to continue.
Basically, my biggest issue and the fear that my colleagues in the organization have, and a lot of Russian citizens in Canada have, is that they will have problems in Canada when their citizenship or other immigration documents are processed, is that if they are persecuted in Russia, it will affect their stay in Canada. And the biggest fear I had was that I will be deported. And I had to live with that fear for a month every day because I didn't know how this will end. And again, no one apologized to me. I don't know why this happened. Maybe there is someone in the RCC who was interested in stopping me from becoming a Canadian citizen. Maybe there was someone there who wanted me to get back to Russia and end up in prison. I don't know. There was no investigation to my knowledge, and I don't know if there would be any investigation. I created a petition to prevent these cases from happening by making a list of foreign laws that will not be preventing people from becoming citizens or getting visas. But IRCC responded that their system is perfectly fine and is working in interests of people like myself. So you might be the judges of that, because I don't agree. And I feel gaslighted by IRCC and I guess Minister of Immigration, and I'm not happy with that.
Well, thank you for sharing, and I apologize on behalf of the government, and I wish there's some resolution that we can find, and some recommendations that you made right now are on record, so they will be looked at and reviewed for sure, and you know, maybe we can look at your case further. I'd like to I'll continue on with you and Mr. Sirois, please, if you could share them with us. What are the most common platforms or channels through which you believe the Russian disinformation is being spread in Canada now? I know that there's a long history of it, and quite frankly, we've heard from several experts in this matter that Russia was like the originator of this kind of, you know, in modern day, almost like warfare, you know, information warfare. If you could maybe tell us what you know or what you monitor today with respect to which platforms or channels that are being used right now.
So it depends on what kind of public they're targeting. So for younger people, that would be Telegram. For I guess maybe older or maybe people who are not very confident with Telegram, there's Facebook. You can see so many bots on Facebook spreading Russian propaganda, and you can tell that those are not real people because they don't post anything else. there is also Canadians, right, or immigrants in Canada from other countries, and like it would be other different medias, or also experts and professors in universities in Canada who spread Russian propaganda and visit Russia on obviously Kremlin-sponsored trips, and then tell how great everything is in Russia and on occupied territories, and then they tour Canada and spread this information among Canadians. So there are definitely several strategies they use for different groups of people, but I can tell that those are working.
So primarily bots are being used. Is that like the primary
I think this is one
operational tool?
It's one of the tools that they use, but certainly it's not the only one.
Okay, and maybe I'd like to go to Mr. Boyd quickly if I have some time here. Just today, there was reports of TikTok being sued.
Nah, guys, that's enough of that. We're not going to watch that shiny-headed liar. Baines, again, it's been a long day. Karina Gould got to me pretty early, like 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or Atlantic Standard Time. And I've sort of been out of sorts since. Karina Gould gets me, like, she's such a fake and a liar and a traitor. I'm sure she's not a good mom. She's back at work, right? Like, anyway. That's too much to speculate on. We do have this other video to watch. We're going to play it.
Do you know anyone who loves Justin Trudeau? It's getting harder and harder to find anybody in Canada who does. That's because after 9 years, he's broken just about everything in our country. But you know what? It might be hard to find people in Canada who love Justin Trudeau, but he's got some big fans around the world. Let me explain.
Выдавить российских поставщиков, заместить наши энергоресурсы альтернативными поставками, неизбежно отразятся на всей мировой экономике. Что здесь удивляет, так называемые партнеры из недружественных стран.
Number one on the list, the entire government of Iran. You see, Justin Trudeau has devastated the Canadian energy sector. Hundreds of thousands of people have lost their job. Billions of dollars of investment have left Canada to develop energy projects around the world.
We can't shut down the oil sands tomorrow. We need to phase them out.
And one country that has seen an explosion in development of their energy sector is Iran. In the last year alone, Iran has boosted its oil production by 20%. They've also announced 50 new oil projects worth a total of over $50 billion. Now, this is incredible because it's actually illegal for much of the world to trade with Iran because of sanctions, because of the fact that they fund terrorism.
In 2018, Washington pulled out of the JCPOA, the international deal on Tehran's nuclear program. Well, that basically reinstated a very wide net of U.S. sanctions on Tehran, which banned nearly all trade with the country.
I mean, consider this. It's illegal for most of the Western world to even do business with Iran. It's illegal for companies to invest and to trade and to buy and sell. Canada has free trade agreements with Europe, North America, most of South America, countries all over the world, and we don't get those investment dollars coming to Canada because Justin Trudeau has made it virtually impossible to develop anything in Canada. Now, it goes without saying that Iran doesn't have anywhere near the same environmental standards that Canada has. They're not worried about international climate change accords. They're not worried about what they put into rivers or lakes in Iran. They definitely don't have any respect for human rights. They fund international terror. They actually take credit for supporting groups like Hamas as they conduct their deadly terrorist activities. This is who Justin Trudeau is helping when he punishes Canadian oil and gas production. And you're a big loser too. It's not just the country as a philosophical concept. Your pension plan, your mutual funds do poorly because they can't invest in projects in Canada because Justin Trudeau won't allow them to proceed. So we lose out on the jobs, the government of Canada loses out on the tax base to fund important services, and your personal savings suffer as well. And remember, it's not like these Canadian oil and gas projects were cancelled because of things like the weather or natural disasters. This is a direct result of Justin Trudeau's policies. That's why every time Justin Trudeau whipped out his pen and cancelled another Canadian energy project, big smiles were seen all over the presidential palace in Iran.
Very close to the front lines was hit, more than a dozen.
Ее цель – защита людей, которые на протяжении 8 лет кровавые преступления против мира.
Coming in at number 2, Vladimir Putin. Canada's allies in Europe have begged us to sell them our clean, ethical LNG so they can stop buying their energy from Russia. They want to stop sending their dollar to fund Putin's war machine. In fact, Ukraine, Germany, Poland, Greece, Japan, South Korea have all asked us to sell them more energy. Justin Trudeau says there's no business case.
One, on the global energy situation. If it makes sense to export LNG, and if there's a business case for it, to export LNG directly to Europe.
When people are lining up outside your door begging to buy what you sell, that is the business case. This would be like a restaurant owner closing at supper time. It makes no sense. That's why Vladimir Putin loves Justin Trudeau's anti-energy policies, because it forces more and more of Europe to stay dependent on Russian oil and gas, funding his war machine and making Canadians poorer. Billions and billions of dollars of potential projects, putting people to work all across the country, boosting pension plans and individual savings, just creating a tremendous amount of prosperity. Canada loses out on all that. Russia gets to keep its customers, keep sending that energy to Eastern Europe, keep taking all that money to fund its war machine. That's the dynamic that Justin Trudeau has helped create. The next member of Justin Trudeau's global fan club, President Xi of the communist regime in China. Let me explain. If you're one of the few Canadians that still think the carbon tax is a good idea because it somehow lowers Canadian emissions, first of all, it doesn't. Second of all it really does is send investment dollars and production offshore. We used to make stuff in Canada. We used to make appliances and furniture. We used to make way more cars. But over the years, more and more of that production has shifted to China. So when Justin Trudeau says you can pay more for your gas, for your groceries, for your heating bill, and somehow we're saving the environment, consider this. In 2023, coal power capacity in China went up 10% from the year earlier. They're on track to have over 300 coal-fired electrical plants by 2030. Coal. New coal. Remember that every time you pay more carbon tax on your clean natural gas. The communist regime in Beijing doesn't care about environmental standards, and a molecule of CO2 does not need a passport to travel around the world. We don't do the planet any favors with a carbon tax that makes life more expensive for you, drives jobs and production and investment to other countries, only to see emissions rise thanks to new coal-powered electrical plants in China, providing the electricity for all the factories making all the stuff that we used to make here. That's the result of Justin Trudeau's policy. You get poorer, the rest of the world gets richer. And don't forget, this isn't like a friendly rivalry with our allies like the US or Great Britain. These are our adversaries. These are regimes that have attacked Canada, whether it's cyber attacks from the PRC, or Russia invading Ukraine, or Iran funding terrorism. These are countries that hate our way of life, hate our values, and want to destabilize Western civilization. Conservatives have a better approach by making Canada strong. We're going to fix what Trudeau's broken by axing the tax, fixing the budget, stopping the crime, and building the homes. That's going to improve life here in Canada. By unleashing the energy sector, putting men and women across the country back to work, attracting those investment dollars to Canada to make our country richer, and those dictators and despots very unhappy. And as always, thanks for watching.
All right, gang, we're going to wrap it up right here. We've had a great day, and we've got to get prepared, and there are more videos to make for tonight. It's a wild thing. There's so many things going on in Canadian federal politics. Like, the reason that I ask you to like, subscribe, share, get notified, all those things for this channel are, we need to get the word out. And I think we're starting to, like, we're picking up here again. What do you think of the black and white? I don't know. Just trying to do something a little different. My name's Aaron. This is Canadian Looney. We have a blast here every day. We've got, I think, one of the best chat rooms online. I was expecting something so much different when I started a YouTube channel, and now it's been a year, and I'm still pleasantly surprised by the audience that that watches the stuff that I try to make. Like, these people are open-minded, pretty patriotic. They care about their country and know that we're in trouble. And an election is the only answer. That's it. We're going to go out on that. I'm Aaron, Canadian Looney. We have a blast here. Like I say, we've got great moderators and an amazing chat room. Come and check us out. We'll be back here tomorrow, like when question period starts. We do a half-hour, 45-minute lead-in show. And so come and check that out. It's always fun. You will learn something. Pretty sure I can promise you that. That's it. We're going to go out on this. And we have this intro extra we like to do. So we're going to play
Hey,
that.
everyone, quiet down. There's a bulletin on TV.
And now for this news flash.
Can I say something to all the people who thought I was a loser, Chuck?
So you want to vote for a pretty boy Canadian named Justin. What could possibly go wrong?
I made a mistake, and I'm sincerely sorry.
Oh, hello. Do you have a warrant to be here?
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
I know this place is where I am. No other place is better than. No matter where I go, I am proud to be Canadian. I am, you know I am. The worst that works.
The one we call Canadians.
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, That's it, guys. We're back tomorrow morning with the question period, so come check us out. Like, subscribe, share, get notified. That's it. Love hanging out with you guys. We're out. Have a good night.
The Notebook with Barbara Plum.
Good evening. Tonight, an in-depth look at the French word dormir. What does the word dormir really mean? For a look at dormir, we go live to a hotel room in downtown Montreal, where our French correspondent, Louis Laloutre, has this special report. Louis Laloutre, nice to have you with us tonight. Louis, we're standing by for your special report on the word dormir. Louis, Monsieur Loutre, are you there?
What? Hey, where am I?
I'm Barbara Plum, and you're on The Notebook. You were supposed to give us a special report on the word dormir. Remember?
Dormir. Oh, oui. Well, in that case, I can stay in bed.
But what about your report?
Well, no problem, Barbara. You see, dormir means to sleep. Et moi, je m'endors beaucoup. Bonne nuit, Barbara.
Dormir. To sleep. For The Notebook, I'm Barbara Plum. Good night.
I'm tired and this is too heavy.
Oh, come on, Basil, hurry. I think it's gonna rain.
Whoa, look at that big hill. I'm not going up there. I'm too tired.
Oh, no. How will we get to the party?
Your legs are getting tired. You've got a heavy load. You know that you won't make it up that long and winding road. There's no need to whine and cry. Don't be such a sour puss. You just stand in line behind the sign that says arrête d'autobus. Take the bus, l'autobus. Ride the bus, l'autobus. Take the bus, l'autobus. Ride the bus, l'autobus. Beep, 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 beep.
We were heading to a party when it began to rain.
I bought myself this heavy stuff so I could fix my plane. If you've got someplace to go, come ride this bus with us. We're all in line behind the sign that says arrête d'autobus. Take the bus, l'autobus. Ride the bus, l'autobus. Take the bus, l'autobus. Come on and ride the bus. Beep, 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 beep. Where's the bus? L'autobus. Where's the bus? L'autobus. Here's the bus, l'autobus. Finally, here comes the bus. Beep, 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 beep. Get on the bus, l'autobus. On the bus, l'autobus. Climb aboard, l'autobus. Find a seat, l'autobus. Beep, 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 beep. Get on the bus, l'autobus. On the bus, l'autobus. Climb aboard, l'autobus. Find a seat, l'autobus. Beep, 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 beep. Get on the bus, l'autobus. On the bus, l'autobus. Climb aboard, look to this line to see. Look to this beep, 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 beep.
Have a good night, gang.